Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We've got some important stuff to talk about today, some stuff that's really going to make people think. If you know some people that would benefit from this video, please share it with them. Hit the like button, subscribe if you like this kind of content. And I've got Stacey with me. She's going to help me get through all the topics, and we're just going to discuss it and talk about some things that are really going to help people in the short term and kind of a long-term outlook of things that are coming.
Well, it's actually really what's happening. It's not just, hearsay or anything like that. This is real live stats that we're researching and finding or whatever. You guys bear with me. Usually I have notes that I look down and kind of help Chris with, but I'm going to have to go off the laptop today. So the first one I want to cover, it's out of Bloomberg, and it says Gen Z is racking up credit card debts faster than any other generation. And I'm going to give you some stats in a minute. Even though Gen Z is actually the fastest growing generation that's racking up debts, there's actually, I think it's the millennials, or no, it was the one after that, Gen X. They actually have the highest credit card debt per month.
That makes sense because they're older. And
I want to give you some stats.
They probably have there's a lot of people that got decent credit right now.
Yeah.
That have higher limits on their credit cards.
Yes, they do. Yep.
And if you have less than $6,500 on your credit cards, you're doing better than half of Americans.
That's true.
That is nuts, guys. For you young guys, there's about 3 things that I can think of that will really set you back in the beginning when you're just getting started. Student loans for a degree that's worthless, some kind of underwater basket weaving garbage you're never going to use. And we can talk about that a little bit, because I'm not saying you shouldn't go to college. I don't want to talk anybody out of it. It was not for me, and I make a lot more money than if I would have went to college, actually. So student debt is a big one. Credit card debt, guys, I know this is probably unpopular, and when people start paying off their credit card debt, they feel like they don't have any money, and they had money and now they don't. But I'm telling you, when you get that debt burden off your back, you will feel so much better. You will feel like when you do that, you're absolutely stacking the cards in your favor.
Sure.
You're getting ahead in life right there. So try to remember that. Share this with a young man that needs to hear it, because I've been there. I've done all this stuff. I've never had a bunch of credit card debt, but I've had some, and I know that cycle. I know that feeling of, you don't make enough, so you have a credit card, and it allows you to do some things.
I'm going to interrupt you a second. Sorry. Not just credit card debt, but you go, and so if you have good credit, a lot of these people, and I want to hear your third item in just a minute, because we got the two. We got the student loans and we got credit card debts. But not just credit card debt, but just loans in general. A lot of people, and we've done it, we bought the big house, and we regretted it, and you bought the boat before we were married.
No, let me go back. We didn't regret it. The housing values went up.
Okay, all right. Point taken.
We bought a house, a decent house in a
but it was
decent
way too
neighborhood.
Big for us.
It was way too big. The bills. I was welding in the front yard. It was a nice neighborhood, and I don't really belong in a real tight area. I belong out in the country, but it was a good purchase because housing prices went up.
It did.
So we're able to sell it.
We did,
and that really helped us out.
It did.
But that's not always the case.
No.
They're not always going to go up. I didn't mean to cut in there.
No, you're absolutely right. But I'm just saying, it's not just always when we say credit card debts, and we probably should specify credit card debts are, but sometimes you might buy that boat or that car you don't need. I know it's not what everybody wants to hear, but when it comes to debt, it's more than just credit card debt. So, sorry, I just kind of want to interject there.
No, that's perfect.
And a lot of times people say, I've got good credit, and then they go get it.
I'll tell my boat story in a minute.
All right, so what was your third item you said?
Okay, guys. If you have student loan debt and you've got credit card debt and some other kind of car payment, and you're strapped, I mean, be honest with yourself. That's how you're going to do it. That's how you're going to get out of debt, is being honest with yourself. That's how you do anything. You quit drinking. You quit eating bad food. You get in shape. You be honest with yourself, because nobody else is going to do it. When I go to the gym, nobody's there to push me. Nobody's there to say, one more, do another one. Or, when I get up early in the morning to go take measurements on something or whatever, nobody's there to do it. I have to be honest with myself.
Right.
So if you're honest with yourself and you're in this kind of debt problemo, we'll call it, debt debacle that most Americans are in, that's going to put a severe strain on your personal relationship life. And that is the third thing. Divorce will set you back a decade, and it is extremely hard to come back from it. I've never had to go through it, but I've had lots of friends, lots of family, lots of people that are close to me. That it is just, it's the worst on the kids, and it sets the man. I don't know, I don't talk with women too often about this, but it'll set the man back usually 10 years, and that's 10 years of, we're talking child support and all these other things. And all those financial burdens is a really good way to put more pressure, because it's work being married. It's something you have to work at constantly. You work at it. You work at it. And it's all the time an effort.
It is.
To stay close and like-minded.
It's so hard being
and
married.
To stay in love. Anybody can fall in lust. I get it. I mean, so it's a growing thing that you do together, and it's really hard when you're in a lot of debt.
I agree with you. To go back to the divorce thing, I think women's have sides also, but it depends on, I think, what they put into the marriage also. But sometimes it will. I've known women that have quit their career, raised the kids, something happened, and then they were left with nothing. They had to start completely all over also.
I know, it's both sides. It's just
it will set both parties back. But I want to go back to, if you don't mind.
No, we can. But if you can avoid those things, you'll be so much better off, guys. I'm just telling you.
Well, it said a new report came out from Credit Karma that members of Gen Z saw their average debt balloon to $6,283 in the final quarter of last year. It's up 3% in just 3 months. So to me, that's a red flag that says they are using their credit card debts more and more. They said it just doesn't include credit card debts, and it's what we mentioned earlier. It's auto loans, it's mortgages, it's different things like that. And with decades-high inflation outpassing wage growth, and we've talked about this, they claim that wage growth is growing up, but inflation is way outpacing it. And I want to show you some stats here in a minute. It said while the credit card debt was the lowest for younger borrowers, the growth has outpaced all other generations at 5.9. So you've got a younger generation that's stepping into the workforce. They don't have as many skills as some of the more established people. And another stat that I just saw the other day. So when all this thing happened with the COVID, a lot of the women quit the workforce. I think it was like 2 million. And they stayed at home. They tried to work from home with the families, the kids, or whatever. Only, 2 million, right? 1 million of them went back, from what I remember on the stats. Well, because of high inflation that's happened this last year, those 1 million women that were sitting at home are now trying to get back into the workforce. That is affecting a lot of these Gen Z workers because they're not established. They don't have that past behind them. They're entering at lower salaries. Obviously, at the bottom of everybody has to work their way up. But they are the ones that the change in debt is rising the most. Millennials are 4.7, but their average credit card debt is $5,898. Gen X is 3.6, so they're not as much, but they're still. That was the one I was telling you about. They're $8,266. And I guess you would think at that age that you would realize, I don't need credit card debt. But people still are trapped in credit card debt no matter their age. I mean, look at the baby boomers.
It's getting harder to make it with your wages.
It is, and one more stat.
Everything's getting expensive.
I know it is. Right. One more stat. So I just also talk about the women. So the people that retired back in 2019, 1 out of 4 are going back into the workforce. And I listened to interview after interview. They came out and they said, we can't afford anymore. Even if their house was paid for, they could not afford, based on their retirement, because their pension was losing money, they could not afford to keep up the repairs in their house. They could not afford to keep the insurance. They could not keep up the health insurance. And so I said, well, how is that going to affect the workforce? Which, interesting, before we go any further, I want to give real quick a stat. So they're saying, if you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they're saying, but the consumer price index is only up 0.4%. We all know that's a joke ended in February.
It is. And I had this conversation with a financial advisor, and he was talking about buying Treasury T-bills and all this other stuff for 2% interest or 3% interest. It was something nutty. I don't know. And I told him, I was like, well, the rate of inflation is closer to 15%. And he was like, no, it's only 6 point something. No. Mm-hmm. If anybody's a little confused about interest rates and, CPI and that type of stuff, check out John Williams' Shadow Stats. It'll really kind of bring it home for you. It'll be what it used to be. Mm-hmm. They manipulate it because this is a house of cards, smoke and mirrors. They're moving the goalpost all the time. The definition of a recession just changed. All these different things change all the time. So they change the CPI. Mm-hmm. And they have to, because if they don't, they'd have to pay Social Security more. They have to pay all the people they owe, they would have to pay them more because they have to go up on the payment if the inflation goes up. So they're going to keep doing that. But going back to the credit card debt and people that just debt in general, it's getting extremely, extremely hard for Gen X with average $8,266 in credit card debt at 18% interest, 20% interest. There's no investment on the planet that you can make and make 18 to 20% interest. Yeah. That's why you need to pay it off first. Remember that. There's nothing you can do to make that kind of income. So you're just literally going backwards the whole time. So
okay, got one more stat for you. So the Gen Z, not only are they taking on debt at a faster pace than older generations, they're falling behind on payments too. They said the Gen Z was the only generation to see an increase in past due accounts, which include credit card, mortgages, student loans, medical loans, auto leases, auto loans that are overdue for more than 30 days. And of course, then you have these ballooning debt balances that's going to impact their credit score, because a lot of these guys went out and they took balloon debts, which is you only pay so much and then you get a balloon payment at the end and they cannot afford it, or they do these ARMs because they had got such a lower interest rate. And speaking of which, so two quick things, we'll keep on going with stats.
That's fine, but
you want to keep going with that?
The people with ARMs and all this debt that's changing, the interest rates are changing. I think we're going to see interest rates in the teens. I mean, I just, it's so possible.
It's so close.
It's like the statistics are there, and that's the people that we're going to have to bail them out. We're going to have to, no, we don't have to, but they are. I'm sure they're going to create stimulus packages, because if you just saw Generation X is the ones, and the boomers are the ones with money. They're going to have to bail those people out if this whole thing goes belly up. They don't have to, like I said before, but that's just more wind to the sails of inflation.
Well, and also for Generation Z, sorry we're hitting on Generation Z today, but it's come out with some stats about them. They already have the lowest average credit score, and that's going to affect their credit history, and that follows you. And I know credit history is not everything, and we've talked about this before, how it could be related to ESG and all that, but that, as of now, that's how you get a house, that's how you get a loan for businesses, that's how you get credit cards. Not that you want to get credit cards, but I mean, that's how you get any kind of financial backing is a credit. That's how you rent houses, to go rent. For our rent houses, we expected a 600 credit score.
620.
Was it 620? I couldn't remember if it was 6 or 620.
That's what it's supposed
to be. It might have been. I'd have to go back and look at the paperwork. It's been a little bit. But we stuck with that on every single renter. We did not change. And I think there was one that we went 1 point below. That was right below the 620 mark or whatever, because she had a reason for something that just happened.
Some kind of medical thing.
Yeah, it was something.
People get fouled up with that stuff, and you try to look past it, but we did really good with our rental properties by not evicting the renter before they moved in, by vetting the heck out of them.
Yeah. So now also I've got an unemployment rate. They're saying it's only 3.6%. And if you look at just what's going on around you, even the people you got to know it's higher than that. And then if you go even one story further, the Federal Reserve just came out and said they're raising it by another 0.25%. And you guys, we all knew it was going to be that. So their target range is now for the U.S. banks, 4.75 to 5%. Well, you guys all know what that means. That means the banks are going to go up. We've said it again. Housing market's going to go up. Interest rates. Auto loans are going to go up. Interest rate on credit cards are going to go up. I mean, you name it. Then that's going to trickle down to businesses. And this is where I think a lot of people, as we talked about the other day for that bank, Silicon Valley. Oh, by the way, I got a little thing I learned something about Silicon Valley. In the last quarter of last year, 2022, they gave out more loans to insider investors than they had given out in like years. I mean, it was a whopping like 2.9 million. I forget what it was. I forget the numbers. But they said, actually, it's so big that they're doing an investigation. They said, I don't think the investors knew that they were taking something, but something was up with that bank.
Well, Credit Suisse is in bed with the WEF.
You told me that. I did not know that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. They are, they're one of their people.
Yeah.
So, there might be that reason they get bailed out. But the banks are going to get backstopped. They're not going to let this thing fall apart like they're supposed to. And it's tough love that should have been done a long time ago, back when Ben Bernanke started jacking with it in 2002. And then 2008, In '08, in a great financial crisis, we went down and touched about where we were supposed to be. We went down and we just barely got to the correction about where it should have been, and they papered over it and stimulated, and now here we are.
We are.
You know, and all the gold bugs were right. Mm-hmm. Everybody was right about what was happening, but nobody can. Everybody, let me say this: everybody underestimates what the Fed can actually do, because it has been very incredible.
Well, so the Wednesday, the Federal Open Market Committee, they came out and they've also said they're not sure how to deal with these 10th consecutive rate hike and how it's going to affect our approach with future increases. He said Powell said the bank recent system failures are likely to result in a level of credit tightening that would have a similar effect on the economy as interest rates hike. So,
did you guys, in the last video, I'll actually put it at the end of this video, and a lot of people don't watch the whole video, but if you'll watch the whole video, you'll see I want to call her Sacagawea. Pocahontas Elizabeth Warren, just pretty much chewing on Jerome's butt about raising interest rates. And what is the other option? Just stimulate forever, just quantitative ease forever, and have a banana republic currency, and that's what they're going to do. We haven't even made the dip yet. We haven't even lost the 2 million jobs, and they're talking, hey, you can't do this anymore, because they see it. They see what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of people lose their jobs, lose their house, lose their cars, lose all the stuff. It's going to be gnarly either way.
It is.
Either way, it's going to be.
Yep.
There's no way. And food, guys. Right here at the end of the video, do you have more to share?
No, the only other thing I was just going to mention real quick, and I'm really interested to see if this will come to pass, because they have thrown it out there every so often that they're saying, the Congress and senators, they should not be allowed to do inside trading, and they should not be able to trade on deals that they are. Well, Nancy Pelosi, when that thing came out with her husband here a while ago, and I think it was the chips. They made a fortune on that. And so now they've said, okay, enough's enough. I would love it if they would put that in. And I don't know how we could reach senators, congressmen, say, vote for this. We believe in this, but they should not be allowed to have access to these companies and say, okay, sure, we like this company. Oh, you guys want us to pass this? Sure, absolutely. Well, let me go buy stock in this. Oh, now we'll pass this bill and you're going to get all these subsidies. And guess what? Your stock just went way up and they just made a buttload of money. And this happens so many times. And so what happens is they get their family members to do it or their spouses to do it. And they're like, I didn't do it. So they're supposed to be putting something out there. I'm curious to see if they do. I would love to see that pass, just like I would like to see term limits also for senators and congressmen passed. There, I'll get off my soapbox.
It's a big club and you ain't in it.
I'll get off my soapbox.
That's the truth. And, there should be term limits. There should be all that. But writing your congressman and writing, I think they know what they're doing is not going to work. And I don't think it means a thing when you write them. And a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't say that. Yes, it does. Well, maybe so. But I just, surely they're not that stupid.
At this point, though.
What could it hurt?
Yeah, what could it hurt?
Well, nothing.
So at least
you're going to tell me they sit there and read them?
But if enough people, in my opinion, bombarded their Congress and Senate, and not just one or two, I mean, if we really took it to heart, and I know before it's happened, it's been a long time since I've heard of an actual example, but if we really did on certain situations or things that we feel very strongly about, I mean, at this point, what do we have to lose? I guess that's how I look at it, because we're swimming. I mean, we're drowning in this stimulus and inflation rates.
With a weight belt on. You're swimming, it's getting close, guys. We're this deep and we're still trying to swim. But, it's going to be interesting as it comes apart. Yep. And here's what's going to go on. Nancy Pelosi and Bill Gates and all these banksters, Jamie Dimon, all those kind of people are going to get more wealthy as this thing comes apart. That's the way it happened in Germany. It's what happened in Venezuela. The stock market went way up. They couldn't buy anything with it. But the people that were on the inside made out like bandits. Mm-hmm. They don't care about anything but getting elected again and making sure you don't use energy. They don't want you to use energy. They want all the resources for themselves. The system is broken, and I'm really turning this into a doom and gloom session, but it really fires me up. It's just I'm not sure what to do about it. I just have a hard time believing writing your congressman is going to do anything. It seems like a midget pissing on.
Well, this is one of the things we're doing. This is one of the things that we decided to do, was try to get the message out there on YouTube, so some people that that's not put in mainstream media, that this is actually happening. This isn't something we're making up.
No, this isn't fear porn. This isn't doom. This isn't supposed to be. Oh, I can't believe. There's no dramatization. There's no. This is exactly what's happening, and it's like we make these videos, and it's like, did you just see what Elizabeth Warren just said? Mm-hmm. Nothing's really happened yet, and they're already wanting to stop it. Mm-hmm. If they stop it, inflation goes through the roof. What is that going to do to single families?
Bad. Especially when you got single families that I talk to some of them ever so often, and to pay daycare is so expensive that the mom ends up staying home, and so you got one income. Or if they do pay daycare, they're trying to find a family friend or someone like that. It's just an inflation going up and interest rates going up higher, and it's a tough situation, and I don't always know the answers, but we keep looking.
Yeah, well, here I want to give some
solutions.
Not financial advice, just good advice. Really, legit advice that I saw, that I was not told, that I watched my grandparents, my parents work and live and spend money. And as I watched them, they didn't get a bunch of credit card debt. Mm-mm. They used credit cards for their benefit, mm-hmm. and they paid it off at the end of the month. And it made sense to me. It's like, okay, you get all the rewards and there's no fees. My credit card just got hacked today. Mm-hmm. They sent me a text, hey, did you buy this? No. Okay, don't worry about it. If that would have been a debit card, it might have been a whole different thing.
Yeah.
The debit card is probably the worst financial instrument ever. So, yes, credit cards are good for us. We use every purchase I make just about is on a credit card. But we pay it off at the end of the month like a bill. I saw my grandparents and parents hold precious metals. I saw my mother work at a business, grow the business. She's a fine jeweler. She's been doing it for 40 years. Or thereabout. I watched my dad get up every day and work in the rain and the cold to support his family. That's what I grew up watching, and that's how I know it works. Mm-hmm. And I was able to watch my uncle own rental properties. Mm-hmm. I was able to watch other people and kind of, and then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I kind of blended all that together. And me and Stacey started doing our own version of everything that I had watched and learned growing up. And it has really worked well, guys. And the number one thing is get out of debt, stack the cards in your favor. There's no feeling like it, I promise you. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses. Nobody cares what kind of car you drive. Nobody really cares. It's when you pull up in your big, nice car that's $1,000 a month or $1,500, something crazy. I've just never had that. It's like, that's okay. I work for assets that pay for my toys,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, anything you want to add?
No. You just might say maybe get out of bad debt, because every once in a while we'll come across something and it's a good debt. Maybe not right now.
You're right. You're so right.
But
if you've got 2.8% interest on your house mortgage, it's way less than inflation. That's probably okay, right?
So I don't think there is a black and white answer on some of these things. I think it's individual, how you have to kind of sit down and look at your particular. That's what he and I did. That's when we ended up selling that house that we had before. We looked and we're like, this isn't working for us based on our needs and our situations and what's going on. And that's what we did for us. That's not going to work for every single person. And so that's where I think.
Well, we got out of some good debt too with our rental properties. That would be considered good debt.
It did.
When you have debt and you have assets that pay you to own them. Because we were able to buy, I would say all of it without any money out of pocket.
We did. We've talked about that.
At first, we had a little money out of pocket. Not much. And then we learned how to do it without money out of pocket. And everybody says, no, you can't. And that's not true. You can. But anyway, we won't go into that. This video is probably long enough. We'll do some real estate videos for you guys. There's one more thing I wanted to mention. If you're looking to buy a house, I think I would wait. I would live in a travel trailer. I would wait for the best buying opportunity
I may disagree with you.
If you can, some people can't. I get it. But if you can wait, as this thing comes apart, there's going to be deals. There's going to be so many deals.
So I'm not so sure I believe, so generally speaking, maybe. I don't know if I believe in that. I don't know if I 100%. You're always going to find that scenario where this is the perfect time for you to buy. If you still can get that interest rate for pretty well low,
How?
You've got money in the bank. Because interest rates haven't gone as high. Well, it hasn't gone as high as it's going to go. So you need a house.
Well, I don't know what you mean. I think they're fixing to... Yeah, watch the interest rates go up. They cut interest rates to save the economy because the American people are hurting and the middle class, we got to do something for them. They can't have a house, and we just can't have that. And they're going to run it all back down. And then there's going to be an opportunity where people have lost their jobs.
I don't like broad statements like that. Okay, maybe that's a better term. I don't like broad statements where you say, you guys right now,
okay,
I don't think you should buy...
let me sum it up like this then.
A house, because I don't know their situation.
We sold our rental properties.
And we kept one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a good chance I'm going to do a line of credit against that because interest rates are still low.
Earlier, when we were talking about getting rid of bad debt, we had some good debt, but we got mostly out of it. I wasn't going to go into it, but we got mostly out of the good debt because if we'd have missed a few rents, it would have not been good. We'd have been in the red, you know? So when you start seeing the bad environment come, you scale out, just like we did, out of rental properties that we'd never missed a rent on, that were perfect, that was awesome. And
I agree with you.
It was hard to do, but we took a step back, and it's not fair for me to tell people, hey, you know, if you need a house, go ahead and get it. It's a good time. You know, that's what a real estate agent will tell you.
I'm not saying it's a good time. I'm just saying, generally speaking, I don't like broad statements, I guess, that just says, okay, you guys, don't go get a house.
Did I say that? I said, if you can wait,
okay,
it might be a good idea.
Okay, you probably did. All right. Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hitting the like button, subscribe, ring the bell. We're going to try to keep this coming. Put any question you have, any kind of video you'd like us to cover in the comment section. That would be awesome. And that's it. Have an awesome, awesome day. We'll see you in the next one. Later.